The top 10 oil-rich countries in the world by proven oil reserves 2026 estimates. Because beneath all the politics, tech, and global drama, the world still runs on thick, black gold. Let's be real for a second. You can have the best iPhone, the fastest jet, and the most powerful army, but without oil, you're basically running a global economy on vibes. Oil is still the lifeblood of modern civilization, fueling our cars, planes, industries, and yes, even the electricity powering your late-night scrolling sessions. And here's the wild part. A handful of countries are sitting on trillions of dollars worth of oil underground, quietly holding the keys to global energy security. In fact, the Middle East alone controls nearly half, about 48% of the world's proven oil reserves, which explains why that region is always at the center of global attention. So today, we're diving deep, literally, into the Earth's richest vaults, from politically complicated giants to undisputed energy superpowers. Here are the top 10 countries by proven oil reserves based on the latest data, counting down from number 10 to number 1. 10. Libya. Proven reserves, 48.4 billion barrels. Key characteristics: Africa's largest reserves, produces high-quality, light, sweet crude. Fun fact, Libya's oil is so high quality, light, and sweet that it's among the cheapest in the world to refine. Refineries actually prefer Libyan crude because it produces more gasoline with less effort. Basically, the VIP guest of crude oil. Libya is like that underrated player in a football match. Quiet, but insanely talented. Holding the largest oil reserves in Africa, Libya's crude is considered light and sweet, meaning it's easier and cheaper to refine into fuels like gasoline and diesel. Sounds perfect, right? Well, there's a catch. Political instability has held it back for its full potential for years. Despite having the resources to dominate African oil production, internal conflicts have made output inconsistent. Still, with nearly 50 billion barrels underground, Libya remains one of the most strategically important energy players on the continent. 9. United States. Proven reserves, 44 to 69 billion barrels, depending on what's included. Key characteristics: a production powerhouse, driven by shale tech, not just reserves. Fun fact, the US became the world's top oil producer largely because of shale oil. And the crazy part? Most of that oil comes from rocks that were once considered useless. Technology literally turned worthless stone into black gold. Now this is where things get interesting. The United States isn't sitting on the biggest reserves, but it's the ultimate overachiever. Thanks to shale oil technology, hello fracking, the US has turned itself into a production monster. It pumps out over 13 million barrels of crude oil per day, a figure that balloons to over 20 million barrels when you include natural gas liquids and biofuels. That's like having a smaller bank account but still being the biggest spender in the room. Its proven reserves are solid, but its real strength lies in innovation and extraction efficiency, proving that technology can sometimes beat raw resources. Number 8. Russia. Proven reserves, about 80 billion barrels. Key characteristics: large deposits in the harsh environments of Siberia and the Arctic. Fun fact, Russia once built entire cities in freezing Siberia just to support oil workers. Imagine living in minus 40 degrees Celsius weather, all because there's oil under your feet. Russia is the definition of go big or go home. With vast oil fields stretching across Siberia and the Arctic, this country holds enormous energy wealth in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. Extracting oil here isn't easy. It's cold, remote, and expensive, but Russia has mastered the art of making it work. Combined with its natural gas dominance, Russia uses energy as both an economic engine and a powerful geopolitical tool. In simple terms, when Russia moves oil, the world pays attention. Number 7. Kuwait. Proven reserves, 101.5 billion barrels. Key characteristics: home to the supergiant Bergen field and very low extraction costs. Fun fact, Kuwait's Bergen field is so massive that it has been producing oil since 1946, and it's still going strong today. That's nearly 80 years of non-stop output from one field. Kuwait is small, but its oil game is massive. It's home to the legendary Bergen field, one of the largest and most productive oil fields in the world. And here's the kicker: Kuwait's oil is incredibly cheap to extract. That means high profits, strong economic stability, and a consistent role in global energy markets. This is a country that mastered the formula. Low cost plus high volume equals serious power. Number 6. The UAE. Proven reserves, about 113 billion barrels. Key characteristics, mostly in Abu Dhabi, uses advanced tech to maximize field life. Fun fact, the UAE uses advanced tech like AI and smart sensors to monitor oil wells in real time. Yes, some oil fields are basically being managed like high-tech video games. The UAE doesn't just pump oil, it optimizes it. Most of its reserves are concentrated in Abu Dhabi, and the country has invested heavily in advanced extraction technologies to extend the lifespan of its fields. Think of it as getting extra juice out of the same orange without wasting a drop. At the same time, the UAE is aggressively diversifying its economy, building global hubs in tourism, finance, and innovation. So while it's still an oil giant, it's also planning for a future where oil isn't the only story.
5. Iraq. Proven reserves around 145 billion barrels. Key characteristics: significant, easily accessible southern fields, the backbone of the national economy. Fun fact, Iraq's oil reserves were first discovered in the 1920s, and since then, some of its fields have been described as so rich that oil can almost flow naturally to the surface without heavy pumping. Iraq is sitting on a literal ocean of oil. Its massive reserves, especially in the southern regions, form the backbone of its entire economy. We're talking about fields so rich that they've attracted global attention for decades. But like many resource-rich nations, Iraq faces challenges: political instability, infrastructure gaps, and security concerns. Still, with 145 billion barrels, Iraq remains one of the most critical, high-potential oil players in the world.
4. Canada. Proven reserves about 170 billion barrels. Key characteristics, mostly unconventional oil sands bitumen in Alberta. Extraction is complex and energy intensive. Fun fact, Canada's oil sands are so vast that they can actually be seen from space. It's one of the largest human-altered landscapes on Earth, basically a giant oil factory visible from orbit. Canada's oil story is complicated. Yes, it has massive reserves, but most of it is locked in oil sands, bitumen, and extracting that, it's not cheap, it's not easy, and it's definitely not quick. Think of it like trying to squeeze oil out of thick, sticky mud. But thanks to advanced technology and strong infrastructure, Canada has turned this challenge into a massive energy industry. So while it may not be the easiest oil to produce, it's still a huge asset. 3. Iran. Proven reserves about 209 billion barrels. Key characteristics, enormous conventional reserves, production often limited by international sanctions. Fun fact, Iran is home to one of the oldest oil industries in the world, dating back to 1908, making it one of the pioneers of the global petroleum era. Iran is an oil giant, with one major asterisk. It can't always fully capitalize on its own resources. With nearly 209 billion barrels, Iran holds one of the largest reserves in the world, enough to dominate under normal conditions. But international sanctions have repeatedly limited its production, exports, and access to global markets, slowing down its true potential. So it's like having a treasure chest, but not always being allowed to open it. Despite these challenges, Iran's sheer volume of reserves and its strategic position ensure it remains a key player in global energy politics, whether fully active or not. 2. Saudi Arabia. Proven reserves about 267 billion barrels. Key characteristics, the king of high-quality, low-cost conventional crude. Fun fact, Saudi Arabia's famous Gower field is the largest oil field ever discovered, so big that it alone has produced more oil than many entire countries combined. Saudi Arabia is the gold standard of oil. Its reserves are not just massive, they're high quality and famously cheap to extract. That's a rare combination, and it gives Saudi Arabia enormous influence over global oil prices. Even more impressive, it maintains 2 to 3 million barrels per day of spare capacity, ready to be deployed almost instantly. That flexibility allows it to stabilize markets during sudden supply shocks, something very few countries can do. In other words, when the oil market panics, Saudi Arabia steps in like a calm CEO, quietly turning the knobs and restoring order. Number 1.
Venezuela, proven reserves, about 304 billion barrels. Key characteristics, primarily extra heavy crude in the Orinoco Belt, costly to produce and refine. Fun fact, Venezuela's oil is so thick, extra heavy crude, that it sometimes has to be mixed with lighter oil just to flow through pipelines. Imagine oil that needs help to behave like oil.
And at number 1, sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, is Venezuela. With over 300 billion barrels, Venezuela holds roughly 18% of the world's total proven reserves. That's not just a lot of oil, that's a global energy jackpot. But here's the twist. Most of Venezuela's oil is extra heavy crude, found in the Orinoco Belt. It's thick, difficult to extract, and expensive to process. Add in crippling infrastructure challenges and political instability, and you get one of the biggest paradoxes in energy history: the country with the most oil, but not the highest production. In fact, despite its colossal reserves, Venezuela contributes only a small fraction to global supply today. Proof that having resources is one thing, using them effectively, that's a whole different game. Important market insights. Reserves versus production. Venezuela holds 18% of global reserves, but is a minor producer. Meanwhile, the US has less than 4% of reserves, but is the world's #1 producer. Nigeria's position just outside the top 10 ranks 11th with nearly 37 billion barrels, making it a critical African energy heavyweight alongside Libya. Middle East power. The Middle East, led by Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, UAE, and Kuwait, holds 5 of the top 7 spots, cementing its dominance in global energy. Final thoughts. Oil still runs the world. For all the talk about renewable energy, electric cars, and a greener future, oil is still king. It powers economies, shapes geopolitics, and determines the rise and fall of nations. But here's the twist. The future of oil isn't just about how much you have, it's about how efficiently you can extract it, how stable your country is, and how well you adapt to a changing energy world. Because one day, the world will move beyond oil. But until then, these countries are sitting on the most valuable real estate deep beneath the surface. So there you have it, the top 10 countries by proven oil reserves. From desert giants to frozen frontiers, from easy-flowing crude to thick, stubborn bitumen. This list proves one thing: the real treasure isn't always what you see. Sometimes it's buried miles underground. So, if you enjoyed this breakdown and want more powerful global rankings like this, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep, entertaining content, and drop a comment. Which country do you think will dominate the energy world by 2035? 'Cause trust me, the energy game, it's just getting started.